Right, welcome back to the show. We are getting tantalisingly close to the American elections. That, of course, is happening 5th of November. Results carrying on through till the 6th. And, well, who knows how much longer? Maybe we will get the final result early, or maybe this will drag on and on. And I kind of worry if it's going to be the latter, actually, because all the accusations of there being conspiracies and rigging will just fly out of control. Well, on that subject, police say they think a man suspected of setting fires at ballot boxes in Portland, Oregon, intends to strike the area again. There have been 3 fires at ballot drop boxes in the past few weeks, which damaged hundreds of ballots. They believe it's possible the suspect intends to continue the attacks. Apparently, he's a white man between 30 and 40 years old, balding or very short hair, a medium build. Wow, look, American police actually give visual descriptions of suspects. Wow, I thought that was a thing of the past. Let's speak to Andy No, US journalist and author of Unmasked: Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy. Andy, the American elections now are constantly swamped in accusations of rigging. We all remember Capitol Hill, January the 6th. This isn't helping the situation, is it? What do you think's going on here?
It's pretty scary that these ballot box fires took place in the Portland area, where I'm originally from. On Monday, it was law enforcement responded to 2 boxes that had been set on fire with incendiary devices. These are essentially homemade bombs that were put inside the boxes. And in one of the ballot boxes, hundreds of the ballots were burned. This is some of the footage that went viral internationally because the ballots, hundreds of them were destroyed. And although on one level you could look at this and say, well, the state of Washington and Oregon are super Democrat, this is not going to have an effect on the presidential election, people forget that there are local elections going on at the city level, the county, and the state. And this is where hundreds of ballots could swing the election, and things are extremely tense. We're days out from the presidential election on the 5th of November, and the rhetoric that's coming from one particular side is that the leader of the Republican ticket is a Hitler supporter, a fascist, and his supporters are like Nazis who are holding rallies like the Nazi rallies in the 1930s. And people have seemed to have forgotten that this type of context is possibly what led us to the attempted assassination shooting earlier in the campaign in Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump wasn't the only one who was shot. There were his supporters who were shot, one who was killed. And this dehumanizing language is, I mean, I've been covering political extremism since 2016. I saw the violence that was unleashed at that time, but the type of vitriol that I'm seeing now coming from the Democrats, I haven't seen before, actually. And I'm actually quite concerned about if there's an election outcome that the Democrats are not happy about, what they are willing to unleash in their jurisdictions where they have power.
Wow.
The violence that comes from Antifa, which I've reported on a lot, didn't come out of a vacuum. It came in a context where local officials encouraged it, supported it, and gave it morale and support and legitimacy.
Is there a concern here that when people are committing these acts, it could be for a number of reasons. One, it's just a nutcase. 2, it's somebody who's genuinely trying to interfere with ballots for a political end, as in support of one party and not the other. Or people who want to actually either lay down the foundations that there could be a narrative that things had been rigged. So, for instance, you're talking about this being in Portland, which is a place likely to vote largely Democrat. Is these sorts of images then potentially possible that they could be used by Democrats if they didn't happen to win overall and say, well, look, it's because the other side were trying to rig this election? I mean, I've been looking on social media and there's all sorts of videos now circulating of things like people going to electronically vote and then the top option being Trump Vance not being available. I don't know if that's a verified video or not. But certainly there is a huge amount of tension, it seems to me, about already questioning the veracity of the result before the result's even been declared.
So there are segments of the American population who don't feel comfortable with the fact that some states in America conduct their elections entirely vote by mail. In Oregon and Washington, the two places where the ballot box fires happen, those states are only vote by mail, meaning you post your ballot to the post office, or you drop it in one of these boxes. And as you can see, they can be vulnerable. And it's important to mention that part of the reason why the story went very viral earlier this week is because Democrats and people on the left were able to blame it on what they thought was some right-wing MAGA person. Now, it's important to mention that a suspect is still at large. You gave the description at the beginning of the segment. But as I reported exclusively in the New York Post on Tuesday, from an election official source, there was a letter, a political message found in one of the boxes, which stated, quote, "All drop boxes will burn, free Gaza." And according to the New York Times reporting, the incendiary devices themselves had free Gaza on it. Now, once that news has come out, a lot of the people who were screaming and shouting about the ballot box fires have suddenly become quite quiet.
Right. Now let's talk now about, a lot of celebrities have been coming out endorsing Kamala Harris in particular. We know how it works in, Tinseltown. You've got to be a leftist. If you're not, you'll be cancelled. Although I have noticed in this election far more celebs coming out and backing Trump than I'd seen previously. A little bit of courage growing perhaps among those who feel like it's now the sort of cool thing to do. You are the rebel if you are a Republican. But perhaps there should be no surprise that British band Mumford & Sons have told Americans to make a voting plan as they performed at a campaign rally for Kamala Harris. "We are Mumford & Sons and there is nowhere else we'd rather be," said frontman Marcus Mumford, essentially saying vote for Kamala. Now, the reason why I think this is pertinent to you is you wrote your famous book on Antifa, and Winston Marshall, who used to be in that band, he had the audacity of reading it. He just read it. And as a result of reading it, he got booted out of the band, didn't he? I mean, this is just, it's ridiculous.
So I love your country, and I moved to England because of its great history, and the people here are amazing and incredible. But I'm an American, and I am very uncomfortable that this election has had a lot of British figures and public individuals who have become involved in our elections, from not just Charlie XCX, who lent her brand to the Kamala Harris campaign, but also dozens and dozens of Labour staffers going over to campaign in swing states, and now most recently Mumford & Sons providing an official endorsement via the Kamala HQ Twitter account. That last endorsement there's a personal connection for me, given that when I look at this, I don't just see another music act who's endorsed Kamala, no surprise there. This is a band who canceled one of their founding members, Winston Marshall, the banjo player, because of one tweet he wrote that was in support of my book in 2021. And my book was about how the American democratic norms and the electoral process in some part was under attack through violent extremists who called themselves anti-fascists. And they canceled him for that because they said that he wasn't allowed to be political, and then now they do something like this. So hypocrisy abounds, and I guess what I would say is, they lost their best band member, and the public gained a great intellectual and commentator, and Winston Marshall is doing incredible work through his podcast and his YouTube work.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I know you're good friends of Winston. We happened to all be at the same wedding the other day, and I got to meet him, and he really is a sort of a really intellectual, calm, quiet, considered man. A fantastic scholar, like you said. Andy, thank you so much for coming on and updating us on all the activity happening across the pond.